The first thing I noticed was the steam. Thin ribbons rising from the mug in front of me, curling in the air like they were in no rush to leave. I couldn't stop staring at it, because it meant I didn't have to look at her. Not yet. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed. The kind of posture that seemed casual until you realized how carefully it was chosen. The faint scent of her perfume, something floral, but older, sharper, hung between us. It clung to the wooden cabinets, to the edges of the room. Or maybe it was just clinging to me. I told you it's nothing fancy, she said, nodding at the mug. Just tea. Her voice had that calm, measured warmth, the type that didn't invite questions but didn't push them away either. I nodded too quickly. Yeah. No, it's good. I hadn't even tasted it yet. My hand tightened around the handle like I was bracing myself for it. The silence stretched. I tried not to shift in my chair, but the legs scraped faintly against the floor anyway. Her eyes flicked toward the sound, then back to me. That look, steady, unbothered, almost amused, made me feel like I'd already revealed more than I meant to. I forced myself to sip. The tea burned the tip of my tongue, but I didn't flinch. If she noticed the pause, she didn't mention it. Her fingers tapped lightly on the counter. Just once. Then again, slower. A rhythm no one else would hear unless they were listening too hard. And I was. God, I was. The kitchen light hummed faintly above us. Somewhere outside, a car door slammed, muffled voices carried. The world kept moving, but inside this room, it felt like time had been stripped down to the barest moments. Her shifting her weight, me pretending to study the tea bag tag dangling from the rim. You don't talk much, she said finally. Not accusing, not even curious, just observing. My throat tightened. I guess I don't always know what to say. Her smile was quick, almost private. She picked up her own cup, the movement smooth. Practiced. I watched the way her thumb traced the rim before she drank. The small sound she made afterward, barely audible, but real, lodged itself under my skin. I realized then I was leaning forward. Not much. Just enough that my knee brushed the edge of the table. She noticed. Her eyes dropped there, then returned to mine with something I couldn't name. I looked away first. My gaze landed on the window behind her. Raindrops had begun collecting on the glass, faint trails winding down, breaking apart. She set her cup down with a soft clink. Your mother thinks I should talk to you more. That you're quiet. Hard to reach. The word hung there, reach. Like a hand outstretched, like something crossing a line. I swallowed. And what do you think? Her laugh was low, caught in her throat before it could escape fully. She stepped closer. Not much. Just enough that her perfume thickened the air between us. Her hand brushed the table as she reached for the sugar jar, but her fingers grazed mine first. Just the slightest touch. Bare skin. Warm. I froze. My heart stumbled against my ribs. She didn't pull away. Not immediately. Instead, she held my gaze with an expression I couldn't read, couldn't prepare for. Then, almost too softly, do you really want to know? I told myself it was nothing. Just tea, just polite conversation, just a touch that probably didn't mean what I thought it did. But the lie didn't last long. By the next morning, her voice had slipped into every corner of my head. The sound of it, steady, unhurried, echoed between my thoughts while I brushed my teeth, while I pulled a shirt over my head, while I poured cereal I didn't taste. Even the way she said ordinary words had weight, like each one had been placed carefully on the table between us. I sat at my desk with an open book, staring at the same sentence until the lines blurred. I could see her instead, the curve of her hand circling the rim of her cup, the brief press of her lips against porcelain. That faint smile, quick and private, like she'd thought something she would never tell me. My phone buzzed on the table. A message from a friend. You coming out tonight? I typed half a reply, erased it, shoved the phone away. My head was somewhere else, pinned back in her kitchen, in the silence that didn't feel like absence but something sharper. Even when I tried to focus, the smallest things betrayed me. The smell of detergent on a clean shirt reminded me of the perfume clinging to her sleeves. The clink of a spoon in the sink sounded like the soft way she set her cup down. I caught myself tapping the table with my fingers, once, then slower, mirroring her rhythm without realizing. By afternoon, I was restless, pacing, half-starting chores just to stop halfway through. I opened the fridge 3 times without taking anything out. Every surface I touched felt empty, unanchored. I kept replaying that moment. The brush of her fingers against mine. Warm. too brief to mean anything, too precise to mean nothing. The question in her eyes when she asked, "Do you really want to know?" I never answered. My throat had closed around the words, and she'd left me with silence thick enough to carry through the night. Now, it was unbearable. The thought pressed at me until I was moving without deciding to. Down the stairs, across the hall, standing outside her door with nothing rehearsed to say. The wood was cool under my knuckles as I hovered there. One small sound, one knock, and the space between us would shrink again. I pictured it. Her opening the door, the faint surprise in her eyes, the pause before she decided whether to let me in. I could almost feel the air shift, could almost hear her voice again. My hand trembled before it fell back to my side. Not tonight. Not yet. The hallway felt too quiet, like it was listening. I turned away, forcing my steps to sound casual on the stairs. But the whole time, my pulse was stuck in my ears, beating out the words I wouldn't say. Back in to it. My phone was still where I'd left it, the blank screen waiting. I picked it up, opened a new message, typed her name. The cursor blinked in the empty box. For a moment, it felt like everything balanced there. The silence, the heat, the question she'd left hanging. My thumb hovered above the keyboard. And then I locked the phone and set it face down. The words would have to wait. It was almost dark when I saw her again. The street was nearly empty, just the buzz of a distant traffic light and the shuffle of leaves across the pavement. I wasn't even supposed to be there. I'd taken the long way home, restless, looking for something I couldn't name. And then she turned the corner. Her coat was open, scarf loosely tied. She walked like she belonged everywhere and nowhere at once. When her eyes met mine, it was quick, like she hadn't decided yet whether to stop. But she did. "Out late," she said. The words were even, clipped short, like they cost more than she wanted to spend. Yeah, couldn't sleep. I mean, I wasn't trying to. Well, I stopped myself. My hands dug into my pockets before I could make it worse. I walk sometimes. Helps. Her mouth twitched, not quite a smile. She shifted her bag higher on her shoulder, and I noticed how the streetlight caught in her hair, throwing copper into the strands. "Does it?" she asked. "Not really," I admitted, too quickly. My laugh came out nervous, sharp. "Sometimes it just makes it worse. More time to think." She tilted her head slightly, studying me the way you might look at a painting you'd seen before but weren't sure you understood. "You think too much," she said. "I know." I blurted, then rushed to fill the silence. Like the other day, when we had tea, I kept wondering if I said something weird. Or if I should have just, I don't know, talked less. Or more. Her eyebrows lifted, just barely. "Tea," she repeated softly, like she was testing the word in her mouth. I felt heat rise up my neck. "Yeah, I mean, it was nice. You were nice. I probably talked too much even then. I do that when I'm nervous. Like right now. I'm doing it again, aren't I?" Her silence said more than any answer. I shifted, scuffing my shoe against the pavement. The air between us felt stretched, delicate, as if one wrong move might snap it. She didn't step closer, but she didn't move away either. "Do you always walk this way?" she asked finally. "No, just tonight." Her gaze lingered a beat too long before she looked past me, down the street. "I see." The space between us pulsed with what neither of us said. The hum of the traffic light, the faint rustle of her scarf, the sound of my own pulse in my ears. I cleared my throat. "It's good to see you again." The words sounded too eager, too young, but I couldn't take them back. This time, she did smile, small, restrained, but real. She stepped forward, close enough that her shoulder brushed mine as she passed. Just the lightest touch, enough to jolt every nerve awake. She didn't look back. I stood there, rooted, watching her walk down the street until the shadows blurred her into the dark. The imprint of her shoulder still burned against me, sharper than anything I could say. The rain started without warning, sheets of it pounding the street until the air turned silver. I was halfway down the block when she called out, "You'll get soaked. Come here." Her voice carried through the storm, sharp enough to cut the noise. I hesitated, then jogged toward the porch where she stood holding a paper bag of groceries against her hip. By the time I reached her, my shirt clung to me and water dripped down my face. She shifted the bag into my arms before I could argue. "Take this." Quickly. I almost dropped it. It was heavier than it looked. A carton of milk pressed cold against my wrist, apples rolling in their plastic netting. She brushed past me to grab another bag from the car, her shoulder grazing mine again, deliberate or not. Inside, the house smelled of rain-damp wood. And her perfume, faint but unmistakable. I set the bag on the counter, pushing it too close to the edge before dragging it back. She came in behind me, shaking water from her hair. "Thank you," she said simply, pulling the second bag from my hands when I reached for it. Our fingers collided, soft against clumsy, a scrape of warmth that left me holding my breath. I forced out a laugh. Guess I was in the right place at the right time. Her eyes flicked to mine, unreadable, then down to the bag. Or the wrong one. Depends how you look at it. The storm hammered harder outside, filling the silence with its restless rhythm. I tried to busy myself, pulling items out of the bag. Oranges, bread, a box of tea I recognized from before. "Careful," she murmured, reaching past me for the milk. Her sleeve brushed my arm as she leaned close, the fabric damp against my skin. I froze, watching the way a droplet of rain clung to her jawline before it slid down. "You're shivering," she said, almost like an accusation. "I'm fine," I lied, though the chill in my soaked shirt said otherwise. She tilted her head, considering me for a long moment, then reached for a dish towel and tossed it my way. "Dry off before you catch something." I pressed it against my hair, awkward, half grateful, half aware of how ridiculous I must look. She turned back to the groceries, but I noticed her pause, the way her fingers lingered over the tea box, as though remembering too. The kitchen felt smaller than it had before, the air thick with rain and something else I couldn't name. I found myself leaning against the counter, closer than I needed to be. She glanced sideways, catching me looking. I should have turned away, but I didn't. Her gaze held for a fraction too long, then dropped to the space between us. The storm cracked overhead, rattling the windows. Instinctively, I flinched, my hand brushing against hers where it rested on the counter. Not a full touch, not even deliberate. Just skin against skin in. The charged quiet. Neither of us moved. The rain roared. The house seemed to hold its breath. And then she shifted just slightly, her fingers almost curling into mine, before she pulled away to tuck her hair behind her ear, as if nothing had happened. But the air between us was different now, humming, alive. The storm hadn't let up by the time she asked me to stay a little longer. "Just until it slowed," she said. "Just to be safe." I nodded too quickly. Now I was standing in her living room, rain streaking the windows, the dim lamplight catching in the strands of her damp hair. She was moving books off a side table to make space for the groceries we hadn't finished putting away. I offered to help, though it meant brushing close each time I set a stack down. "Careful," she said once, as my elbow nearly tipped over a vase. Her hand shot out, steadying it, and in the same movement her fingers grazed mine. A brief contact, nothing more than accident, but my skin burned as if she'd held on. I muttered, "Sorry." Too soft. She didn't answer, just kept arranging, her shoulders tightening slightly before relaxing again. I tried to focus on anything else, the books, the sound of the storm, the smell of tea leaves from the box on the counter. But every detail circled back to her. The way she stood with one hip tilted, the way her breath caught when she bent to lift something heavy, the faint trace of perfume clinging stubbornly to the room. At one point she leaned past me, reaching for a book I'd stacked too high. I should have moved back. I didn't. Her sleeve brushed my arm, warm against the chill still clinging to me from the rain. "You didn't have to stay," she said quietly, close enough that I could hear the softness in her tone. "I wanted to," I answered before I could stop myself. Her eyes flicked up to mine, sharp and searching. For a moment neither of us moved. The silence pressed in, filled only by the rain and the hum of the lamp. I forced a laugh, nervous, breaking the weight of it. "I mean, it's no problem. Really, I don't mind." Words spilling out faster than they should, too quick, like always. She looked away first, setting the book down. "You talk too much," she said, but there was no edge to it this time. Something in me wanted to answer, to push, to say more. Instead, I watched her fingers linger on the spine of the book, sliding slowly away as if stalling for time. When she finally stepped back, her shoulder brushed mine again. Not accident this time. There was too much space in the room for it to be. My breath caught, but I didn't move. She did. Her hand lifted slightly, almost reaching, almost touching. Then she froze. A flicker of something, hesitation, regret, passed through her expression. "I think the rain's letting up," she said abruptly, though we both knew it wasn't. The distance between us felt heavier than the storm outside. I nodded, though my pulse was still lodged in my throat. Right? Yeah, I should probably. I didn't finish. She turned away, fussing with the books again, pretending not to notice that my hands were still trembling. The words I wanted to say stayed stuck, unsaid, hanging in the thick air between us. The cafe was nearly empty, the kind of mid-afternoon lull where the hum of the espresso machine sounded louder than it should. I hadn't expected to see her there, sitting by the window with a paperback open and a half-finished coffee cooling at her elbow. For a moment I froze in the doorway, pulse kicking. I could have turned back. Should have. But she'd already lifted her eyes, and once they caught mine, there was no retreat. Sit, she said simply, closing her book. I slid into the chair across from her, too aware of how small the table was, how close her sleeve brushed the edge of my armrest. My coffee arrived a few minutes later, untouched as I searched for the right words. You come here often? I asked, immediately regretting how cliché it sounded. Sometimes. Short. Neutral. Her fingers toyed with the paper sleeve of her cup. The silence stretched. I scrambled for something else, anything. I was thinking about the other night. Her gaze flicked up sharply. My throat tightened. I rushed on. Helping with the groceries, the storm. I liked it. Being there. Her posture stiffened, just enough to feel it across the table. I winced inwardly, too late. That's not something you should say, she murmured. Not harsh, but clipped. A warning. Heat rose to my face. I didn't mean it like that. My words tumbled. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. Her silence cut sharper than any correction. She sipped her coffee, though it was cold enough that she barely swallowed. I stared at mine, untouched, the steam already gone. My reflection warped in the dark surface. The chair across from me suddenly felt too far and too close at the same time. My shoulders tightened. I leaned back, arms crossing without thinking. Every part of me screamed at how badly I'd misstepped. Outside, a bus rolled past, its hiss of brakes filling the silence. The sound lingered even after it left, leaving us stranded in it. Finally, she spoke. You're young. The words landed flat, definitive. A wall I couldn't climb. I nodded too quickly, my voice breaking into the space she'd left. I know that. I bit my tongue, stopped myself before the wrong words spilled again. Her book sat between us, the spine cracked in the middle. I wanted to ask what it was, what she'd been reading, anything to pull us back to safer ground. Instead, I stared at my hands, tightening into fists, releasing, tightening again. Her chair scraped softly as she pushed it back. My chest sank with the sound. I should go, she said, already gathering her things. I opened my mouth, but nothing came. Not an apology, not an explanation. Only silence, heavy and sharp, sealing itself between us. She left her coffee unfinished on the table. The chair across from me sat empty, her absence louder than her presence had been. By the time I thought of what I could have said, the bell above the cafe door had already stopped ringing. I didn't expect her to be there. The park was nearly empty, the evening air heavy with the smell of damp leaves after yesterday's rain. I'd only come to clear my head, to walk the same path I always walked when I didn't know what else to do. But there she was, sitting on a bench near the pond, scarf pulled tight around her neck, a paperback balanced loosely in her hands. For a moment, I froze. The memory of the cafe, my words spilling wrong, her silence like a closed door, pinned me to the gravel path. I almost turned back. Almost. She looked up before I could. Her eyes held mine, steady, unreadable. Then, slowly, she closed the book and set it beside her. I walked over, pulse quick in my throat. Mind if I sit? My voice cracked on the last word. Her pause stretched just long enough for me to wish I hadn't asked. Then she shifted slightly, leaving space beside her. I sat, careful, the wood of the bench cold even through my jeans. For a while, neither of us spoke. The air between us hummed with everything unsaid, with the ghost of all the wrong words I'd thrown at her. Finally, I said, about the other day, and then stopped. My throat tightened. She tilted her head, waiting. I didn't mean to, the words tangled. I let out a shaky laugh. I ruin things sometimes. I talk too much. I say the wrong thing. Her lips curved. Not a smile, not fully. More like she'd been holding something back and finally let it show. You think too much, she said, The same words she'd used before, but softer this time. Almost kind. The knot in my chest loosened. I risked a glance sideways. She was watching the pond, where ripples spread across the surface from a duck landing clumsily in the water. Her posture was still, but her hand rested on the bench close enough that I felt the space between our fingers like heat. I wanted to reach for it. Instead, I let mine inch closer, slow, deliberate. Not touching, just near enough that if either of us shifted slightly, it would close the gap. She noticed. I knew because her breath caught, subtle but there. And though she didn't move away, she didn't close the space either. Not yet. We sat like that, shoulder to shoulder, the evening light dimming around us. After a long silence, she spoke. You remind me of something I thought I'd forgotten. I swallowed hard. Is that good? Her smile flickered, brief, unfinished, but real. I haven't decided. I let out the breath I'd been holding, a laugh catching in it. For the first time in days, the weight between us felt less like a wall and more like a door half open. She reached for her book again, but didn't open it. Instead, she placed it on the bench between us, closer to my side than hers. A small gesture, but it felt like something more. I didn't push, didn't press for words. We just sat there, quiet, the evening gathering around us. And when her shoulder brushed mine, light, unsteady, but deliberate, I didn't move away. The story wasn't over. Not yet. Did you enjoy this story? What kinds of stories would you like to hear next? What do you think will happen next between them?